Hey guys, it's Mrs. Beatty here. This is chapter 3 of our story, Jack. Remember, these are posted in your teacher's Google Classroom, so you guys can look back on it, and you can either read it by yourself with the PDF, or you can listen to me read it to you. So, chapter 3. And I forgot to be telling you guys the name of the chapters. Each title has a chapter, and this chapter is called Sir Blueberry, or Sir Blueberries. So, here we go, chapter 3. The sky closed, and another dirt shower poured over my head. "Papa!" I shouted. "Papa! Hey, Giant, come and get me! Don't you want me to? I'm Jack! You're supposed to take me!" I jumped up and up and up. I climbed to the loft of the roofless barn and jumped as high as I could, but it wasn't high enough. Rope. If the giants could come down here with ropes, then maybe I could climb up the sky on one. I waded through the straw and rubble of the barn until I found a rope. I also found a big hook in a jumble of Papa's tools and tied it to the end. I climbed back up to the loft and swung the rope around and around with the hook on the end and threw it as high as I could. It sailed up and up toward the dark sky. I thought it might catch onto the moon, but then it came down with a thud. I tried again. I swung it faster and threw it harder. I did it again and again until my arms were so weak I could hardly swing the rope. I couldn't reach the top of the sky. I couldn't get to Papa. "Help!" I called in a tiny, pitiful voice. "Annabella!" I had nearly forgotten about Mom and Annabella. They were still in the house, with a tree sticking through the side. I ran toward them. The tree had crushed one corner of the roof and torn the wall of the next door. I crawled through a gap between the branches. Inside, Annabella was on the floor, sobbing next to Mamma, who was trapped under a pile of wood and rubble. "Jack," said Mamma, "oh, my boy, thank goodness you're safe." She tried to lift herself up, but fell back. "Where's your papa? Where's Henry? Can you get him for me?" I shook my head and looked down at the floor. "He's gone." Mamma fell silent, and then her eyes got all shiny and her chin began to tremble. "Papa's gone? Gone where?" said Annabella. "The giants took him," I said, "and the newborn calf." "Jack, please, not now," Mamma pleaded. "But didn't you see it? The giants threw that tree." I pointed toward the hole in the house. "They came down from the sky and took all our animals and our food and Papa." Annabelle's hand flew to her mouth. "Are the giants going to eat him?" "No, I'm going to find him first." "I'll help. I can find him too," said Annabella. "You're not big enough," I said. "I am so big enough," she shouted. "Enough, both of you," Mamma groaned. "Please, no talk. I need your help. I need to get this wood off my leg." Mamma ground her teeth and tried to sit up. Her face was white as wool. I tried to lift the pile of wood off her, but my arms were limp and weak from all my throwing. "It's too heavy." "One at a time, Jack," said Mamma. "Start with the top and work your way down." I lifted one piece and slid it off the top pile. I lifted another piece and another until I was sweating and my arms were shaking. But eventually I dug Mamma out. Her leg was purple and swollen, and a big bleeding gash ran down her shin to her ankle. Annabella and I both cringed and sucked in our breath. "Help me, Jack." I offered my arm, but when Mamma tried to move her leg, she screamed. She released my arm and took slow, steady breaths through her teeth. "I think it's broken," she said. "Annabella, you need to be a strong girl and help your Mamma." Annabella came to the other side, and together we were able to lift Mamma and help her to the bed. She whimpered as we propped her leg on some pillows. Annabella inspected Mamma's leg as though she were a doctor. "I don't think it's broken too badly, Mamma. I'll boil some water so we can clean the cuts." Annabella quickly went to work. She built a fire, boiled water, and tended to Mamma's leg, while I just stood there feeling numb and weak and hollow. All I could think of was Papa. "We must search for your father," said Mamma. "He could be nearly injured. He could be struck under a branch, or the wind might have carried him high up in a tree. Maybe he can't get down." That much was true. It was pretty hard to get down from the sky. "Jack," said Mama, "you must go to the village and ask for help. Gather a search party, everyone and anyone willing to help." Annabelle and I looked at each other. She shook her head at me, and I knew she meant I shouldn't argue with Mama. I shouldn't tell her that Papa had been taken by the giants because she would not believe me. Mama thought the tales were all hogwash, and what was the use of telling her otherwise? She wouldn't know how to get the giants any more than I did. So I went to the village. The road had been trampled by giant footsteps. I had to climb over uprooted trees and branches. When I got to the village, this is what I found. Nothing and no one. There were no horses or mules or chickens or goats, no cows or sheep. There was no mill. There was no cobbler's shop or smithy bakery. All the shops and houses had been ripped up and taken away, leaving gaping holes in the ground. "Hello?" I called out, but no one answered. Not the blacksmith or the cobbler or the baker. Not the window Francis or 13 children or Horace and the pigs. I imagine he'd held on to Cindy the way Papa held on to our calf, and the giants just carried them up. I sat down in the hole where the baker should have been. The wind blew. It swirled the dust and lifted the faintest smell of fresh bread and sugar. What was I going to tell Mama now? Not only was there no one in the village to help, there was no village. In the meantime, Papa could be in a cage or a dungeon now, waiting for the giants to get hungry. Blurt, blurt. A horn blew in the distance. It sounded official, like someone important was coming. I looked down the road and saw a waving flag and a knight riding toward the village. In the stories of my 7th grade Grandpa Jack, he befriends a brave knight who helps him fight the giants. It seemed fitting that a knight in shining armor, riding a noble steed, should come now to assist me. Except as the knight grew closer, I noticed that his armor was not exactly shining. It was dingy and rusty, and his noble steed was a suede-packed mule that kept bucking and veering off course. "Whoa there! Ho, you lowly beast!" shouted the knight. "Heed my command!" The mule bellowed and buckled so hard the knight nearly fell off the ground with a clatter. The knight quickly stood and bowed before me. His rusty armor cracked every move. "Lowly villagers," he spoke as though an entire village was present to hear him, "I, Sir Blueberries, the chivalrous, have come to protect thee from giants who roam the land, attacking men, women, and children. Be warned, they will pillage your farms, steal your animals, and wreak terror and havoc, but never fear, I shall protect thee with my strength and valor." He lifted his creaking arms as though he was expecting a great cheer. "The giants already came," I said. The knight looked down in surprise. "What's that you say? Speak up, peasant boy. My noble ears need a gallant voice." I shouted at them. "The giants already came! They raided the village and took our food and animals, and they took my papa." "Did they truly?" The knight blinked and looked around, taking in the evidence that giants had indeed already been to our village. He dropped his arms. "Drat! I thought you were 50 miles ahead of them at least." "Have you fought any giants?" I asked. "Have you seen them?" "Oh, yes, hundreds," said Sir Blueberries. "The last giant I met tried to bite off my head, but I chopped his off first. He drew a rusty sword that didn't look sharp enough to cut cheese. The giants practically flee when they hear my name. That's probably why I missed them. They knew Sir Blueberries the chivalrous was near and fled for their lives." "Where do they live?" I asked. "Oh, here and there." Clearly he had no idea. "Is there any place to get some good grub around here? Stew? Pie? A little bread and butter, perhaps, for a chivalrous knight and his noble steed? I'm famished." Sir Blueberries thumped his metal belly and looked around, as if he were expecting a feast to appear. What a blubberhead. I needed to get rid of this idiot fast. "There's another village a short distance that way," I pointed down the road. "They probably have lots of food. Maybe you can catch up to the giants before they attack." "Oh, yes, of course." Sir Blueberry tried to mount his mule, but it kept shifting and turning. By the time he finally got on, he was backwards. "Farewell, lowly peasants." He waved as though bidding farewell to a large, cheering crowd, not just one disappointed boy. I am Sir Blueberries the Chivalrous, sworn to defend and protect the meek and lowly. I save ye from the giants. Oh, and will you look out for my papa? I shouted after him. His name is Henry. Of course, said Sir Blueberries. I always rescue the fair maidens. The mule stumbled in one of the giant's footsteps, and Sir Blueberry pitched forward and grabbed onto its bottom. It bellowed again and started trotting down the road with Sir Blueberries hanging backwards and sideways. I trudged home, worn and helpless. In the daylight, I could see our farm more clearly. It was a wreck, worse than Miss Letty's cabbage field. I gazed at the ruined barn, wishing I had been inside last night. It always should have been me to face the giants, not Papa. It really does look like a storm hit, I said said a small voice behind me. I turned to see Annabella. She had a piece of bread in her hands, and I held it out to me. I took it, suddenly realizing how hungry I was. I saw the giants, I said. I saw them. I believe you, Jack, she said, and then she comforted me some, but not enough. What did it matter if my scrawny little sister believed me? What could she do? Our fields were torn up and trampled, our trees, our animals, our garden, all ripped up and taken. We had nothing. We'd been poorer than dirt before, so what were we now? Nothing. Nothing minus Papa. Moo! Annabelle and I started. Moo! That sounds like Milky White, she said. We raced to the barn. At first we didn't see any sign of the cow in the now roofless barn. She mellowed and cried, and finally we found her buried under some hay and rubble. We pulled away the hay tufts and lifted the rubble, until at last Milky White was free. She heaved herself to a standing position. Moo! Oh, Jack, she's in pain, said Annabella as she rubbed at Milky White's neck. She just had her calf, I said, and she probably needs to be milked. I found a dented bucket and milked the cow, but afterwards she kept mooing and groaning like she was in horrible pain. I think she misses her baby, said Annabella. Poor Milky White. Of course, her baby got taken right along with Papa. I didn't want to think of the giant. I didn't want to think what the giants had planned for them. If there were any truth in Grandpa Jack's tales, the prospects were not good. I'm sorry, Milky. I patted her on the neck, even though she was just a cow. I could imagine how she must feel about losing her calf, not knowing where he was or what was happening to him. I imagine we felt about the same, Milky and I. I would leave this instant to find Papa, if only I could find a way into the sky. So chapter 3, you guys can now look at Google Classroom and complete your assignment.